In the spirit of expanding this channel from more collectibles based to everything nerdy, I figured it'd be a good idea to talk about my top 10 movies. And again, this is my opinion. If you don't agree, that's completely fine. Some people love movies that others hate. I know that happens with me. And I know I don't care for movies that other people love. Without further ado, let me just get into it with number 10. Ready Player One, in my opinion, is one of the most rewatchable movies for me personally. And it is a big reason why it's on my top 10. Now, this is a full disclaimer. I have not read the book. I know that for people that the movie is very divisive, for those that are the book lovers, and for that reason I'm not going to read the book. I don't plan on reading the book because I don't want it to ruin the movie for me. If you love the book and therefore you don't like the movie, that is fine. I know for me that's how I feel about the first Hunger Games movie. If I had just watched it without reading the books first, I think it would have been a lot more enjoyable, but it missed out on a ton, and that may be the case with Ready Player One. That being said, I love the references. I know it's full of them, but I think most of them are really well placed. Like even the Chucky doll being used as a weapon, I thought was hilarious, especially because I was terrified as Chucky as a child. And having The Shining be the book that slash movie that they have to go into is amazing. Again, it's a little bit ironic because The Shining is one of those movie and book adaptations where they are completely different. And I have read the book and I have watched the movie, and they're both great, but for so many different reasons. They are very, very, very different. And I don't know if it was done intentionally. It probably was. Again, I haven't read the book, so maybe that was apart from the book. I also just think it's such a fun time. If you go into the movie, for me, I love having in-depth theater experiences. I love having emotional connections that go way deep into movies, and higher on this list there will be those. But this is just a super fun movie, maybe one of the most enjoyable movies for me ever, and that's why it's on my top 10. Number 9 is Avengers Infinity War. It is the only Marvel movie on this list. I love Marvel through and through, but I just trying to include only one. I don't want to overpopulate my top 10 with the same types of movies, and that'll be covered multiple times moving forward. But Infinity War for me is great because, as everyone knows, it's from Thanos' perspective. I think it flows really well. I think Endgame is a good movie that has kind of pacing problems, and for me, rewatching it time and time again has made it a little bit longer, a little bit trying to get to the final battle, and I still think it's a great movie, and I think what they've done is amazing. And I also think this new phase is fine. People are overcritical, but I think Infinity War was such a good flowing movie. It never stopped, and I think they even cut out some stuff they couldn't have and made it even longer, and it still would have been great. So just to quick summarize, I think it's the epitome of Marvel and everything Marvel can be. The villain-driven narration and arc is amazing. Josh Brolin as Thanos is great. And I really hope we get another movie like that with Jonathan Majors as Kang, where he is the person we follow throughout the film. Number 8 for me is Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. I like all of the movies, and this is just, again, including only one on this list. Deathly Hallows Part 2 is another one that I go between them on. But for me, The Prisoner of Azkaban is incredibly nostalgic, and also it has that time of Halloween, that time of fall, branching into winter, which is my favorite time of year. The subtle score is amazing. The single note background music just plays so well. It's a little darker, maybe even the darkest movie of the Harry Potter franchise from a horror aspect. Obviously it's not horror, but having Sirius and the Grim stalking him in a way, and the first showing on screen of the Dementors. I really just can watch that movie over and over again, and I'll never get tired of it. Again, it reminds me of my childhood. I love the books. And to me, The Prisoner of Azkaban is the very top, and I think it is for a lot of people. I think some people may not like it as much, but to me, it's everything great about Harry Potter. My personal top 10 is so all over the place, it's constantly changing. One movie I loved from the get-go, and number 7 is Midnight in Paris. I am a sucker for historical set movies, for meeting figures. That's why Doctor Who is one of my favorite shows. I think the best episodes of that show are when he's, meeting Vincent Van Gogh or Van Gogh. And Midnight in Paris is a perfect example of this. It's a very simple movie, all time travel or however you want to interpret what's going on. Meet historical figures, and I think the message is one that I can personally connect with, which is everyone wishes they were in another era or another decade, or no one is content, or at least you personally cannot be content with where you are. But if you were back in time, if you were in the 80s or if I was in the 70s, and it probably wouldn't be like I would want it to be, and it would be people there would want to be in the 40s or the 20s or the 1800s, and I think that's a very powerful message. I think Owen Wilson plays his role really well, and it's a movie that is, in my opinion, very emotion inducing and one that I very much enjoy. And I really like the Paris setting, the music, everything like that. That's why it's in my top 10. If I had to pick one animated movie, and this is a very difficult because I love so many, it has to be, for me, Ratatouille. I love cooking. It's one of my relaxation techniques. It's one of my things I find peace in. Again, as someone who struggles with anxiety, it is very calming. I never wanted to be a chef because I always want to cook on my own time. I could never do it for a full-time job. I think that sounds horrible. And for most of the people that have watched The Bear, from what I understand, it's pretty accurate, and that's something I've never wanted to be a part of. But I think Ratatouille is a great animated movie. I think anyone can cook can mean so many things, and I think it's, you can be anything you want to be, and nothing can hold you back. Again, the Paris setting is amazing, the music, just everything about it is, again, a lot of my stuff is nostalgia based, so I just find Ratatouille as the animated movie for me if I want a comfort film. That being said, I love all kinds of other animated films. Coco, Shrek, DC animation. There's so many choices here that it's hard to just pick one. But at this present moment, and it can always change, the choice is Ratatouille. Watching Ted Lasso, there's a joke about The Departed not being Scorsese's best work. But in my opinion, it is such a great movie. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. I think it has obviously a star-studded cast that works really well together, and it's a classic cat and mouse. Who's going to get caught, DiCaprio or Damon? The ending is great. Jack Nicholson is amazing in this movie. I mean, he's probably playing himself, but it doesn't change the fact that he's crazy. Martin Sheen, Alec Baldwin, all these guys that legendary actors when they were young and legendary actors that were probably in/past their prime all came together to form this movie. And again, I think it's just an easy watch. Are there better mafia movies? Probably. I mean, maybe Casino is better. But in my opinion, the most rewatchable is The Departed. Baseball is very special to me and my family. I've grown up playing it. Me and all my brothers played it. And it was definitely a bonding thing for our family. As you can see by the Red October, I am a very, very, very intense Phillies fan. Number 4 on my list is Moneyball. It is a movie for baseball fans. Some people may miss something if they aren't deep into baseball and the sport. That being said, I think it's still a very enjoyable movie even if you aren't a diehard baseball watcher. But for me, as someone who loves analytics, it goes even further. As the moment when Scott Hatteberg hits the home run and they overcut it with the real film is goosebumps for me. And Brad Pitt is amazing. Jonah Hill in his first serious role, I believe. I'm not positive about that, but it just works so well. It's again a historical movie, nonfiction, maybe embellished, but it still to me is my favorite baseball movie. Again, one of many, but it's the one I would put on here. The most recent movie on my list comes in at number 3, and that is The Batman, with a chance to actually be number 2. Again, my list is always changing, so it might flip there eventually, maybe on a few more watches. I have seen it a decent amount of times, and each time it's just, to me, gets better. The more you notice the little things, the more you see how much care goes into it. I am of the opinion that the Dark Knight universe was a great trilogy, but I think it's a little overrated. Again, this is completely my opinion. If you love the Dark Knight movies, I completely understand why. I think Christian Bale was an okay Batman. He was a great Bruce Wayne. I think he was carried by the villain performances in the movie, especially Heath Ledger and Cillian Murphy as Scarecrow. The Batman with Robert Pattinson took some things that worked well in the Dark Knight and improved upon it. I think Gotham is the best display it's ever been in the Batman. I think Pattinson and his suit and the practicality is incredible. And I think it flirts the line between a comic booky movie like Tim Burton's Batman and a realistic movie like Nolan's Batman. And it finds that really great middle ground where it's not ultra realistic, but it's also not comic book fantasy like Tim Burton's is. The soundtrack, Michael Giacchino, amazing theme, amazing score. The Batmobile, never knew I wanted to see Batman in a muscle car until I saw this movie, and then how could it be any other way in a practical sense? The Riddler, I mean, it's hard to imagine him getting a better version of himself. And I think it's easy to see where this is going and how it's still going to be set up for success. The Penguin rendition was great. Just all the characters really thought about. The castings were weird at the time, some of them, or maybe even all of them. And yet you see it and it's like clearly Matt Reeves loves this property and so much passion went into this. And it was just one of the most hyped movies, if not the most hyped movie I've ever had personally. And it just paid off even that and more. And I can't believe that that'll ever happen again, where a movie I will have hyped up so much in my mind pays off in the way that it does. 2 and 1 flipped back and forth for a long time, but at the moment it's been this way for a while. They're both Christopher Nolan movies. Number 2 for me is Inception. I think it's a cinematic masterpiece. The dream sequences are incredible to watch. The cast works really well together. Inception is a wild concept, yet it is made to be somewhat believable, and there's a decent amount of emotion in it for an action movie, for a heist movie. And I think Christopher Nolan is just one of the best filmmakers. And I know it's like some people might say there's a film broy thing to say. I don't consider myself that. I just have to go on my own enjoyment, and Inception is right up there for me. But in my opinion, number one, my favorite movie is Interstellar for so many reasons. It's more emotional than Inception, and I think the soundtrack, both being by Hans Zimmer for Inception and Interstellar, but Interstellar's is better. It invokes, again, more emotion. When I listen to Interstellar soundtrack, I know exactly what moment it is. I know how much tenseness is packed into those moments. I think Matthew McConaughey is amazing as the lead in a very serious role for him. Not that he can't play serious, but I feel like he's kind of gotten this reputation of, being all right, all right, all right. Very powerful. Such an insane choice, but one that nobody wants to make, is your kid choosing to grow up and raise your kids or choosing to save the world. It's amazing. The black hole, incredible to look at. Everyone knows Nolan's known for his cinematography, and it does not disappoint here. It's just such an experience for me. It's not one that I watch all the time because I think it is so emotional and it really makes you think after. It's one that sticks with you. It is by far my favorite movie experience, and I appreciate everyone watching along with me. And if you like this kind of stuff, subscribe, let me know your top 10s. Let me know what you think I can do better, but please be respectful. And I appreciate anyone who is watching, and I hope this channel grows and you guys grow along with me. So thank you so much.